So Jen May, if you want to come sit up here. Lonnie. The problem is I know all of you, so. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Jennifer Westhoff, and it's my honor and privilege to serve as your president and CEO of the Sedona Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau. Thank you for joining us this morning. We have a jam-packed agenda. Lots of things to cover today. We'll be having a sustainable tourism plan update. We'll be having an update from Andy Dickey on the updated Sedona in Motion transportation initiatives that the city is undertaking. Mike Graber is going to give us an update on the land development code, which may or may not impact you as it relates to some sign elements and other business elements. Michelle Conway is going to give us an update on the winter marketing plan, and then we'll also have Molly Spangler, our Economic Development Director, give us a little bit of information about small business assistance, what resources are available to you and to your employees, and also an update on the Verde Valley Regional Economic Organization's loan program. If you're looking at expanding your business, there's some great resources in the Verde Valley available for you. So, each of our presenters know that we have about 20 minutes for each of their topics, including time for questions and answers. So with that, I'd like to acknowledge and thank Ed Conway and Daniel Carrillo with the Sedona Rouge. Thank you so much for hosting us here today for the lovely breakfast. Thank you to all of our board members who are here. If any of my board members can please stand and be recognized. And Jeremy's here, and Lonnie, Darla's here. And then also to our elected officials who are here. I see Mayor Sandy, Vice Mayor Martinez, Councilor Jadwell, Councilor Bill Chisholm, wherever he ended up sitting, not yet. And did I miss anybody? Is any of our other council people here? Thank you for being here, and thank you for your support and your work in the community. Absolutely. And thank you to APS, Arizona Public Service. Darla DeVille is here. They are a sponsor of this great event. So Darla, thank you. Thank you very much for all your support in the community. So let's get started. It's my privilege to give you an update on our sustainable tourism planning effort. And this is really an effort that started back in 2016 to try to balance these four things. Balancing the environment, the quality of life of our residents, the quality of the economy, and the visitor experience. And for us, it's really been all about balancing and trying to figure out where that balance is and where that sweet spot is. It started in 2016 when we brought in the Global Sustainable Tourism Council and did a destination assessment. We were the second destination in the U.S. Next to Jackson, Wyoming, to undergo this comprehensive destination assessment. They looked at 41 different sets of criteria, destination management criteria, how well are we planning, are we budgeting, what is the visitor satisfaction rate, do we have a crisis communications plan. They looked at criteria in the economic and social arena. They looked at career opportunities, community opinion of tourism, support of the community of the tourism industry. They looked at community and culture criteria, including visitor management, visitor behavior, and they also looked at 12 different sets of criteria as it relates to the environment. And we scored pretty well in this assessment. Out of the 41 sets of criteria, 33 we scored excellent in. And there were 6 that we scored not so great in. So in this assessment, they basically said at that time in 2016, we were world leader in sustainable destination development. But they gave us 4 primary focus areas. They said, number 1, that we need to have better coordination with all of the organizations who are doing great things in Sedona. They said that we need a destination strategy plan for sustainable tourism development. They said that we need to accept and promote some sustainability criteria or standards in the community. They said that we need to really find out what our locals think about tourism, and we need to really focus on low impact transportation. So these were our marching orders in the last fiscal year, and we hit a lot of those criteria, those new ideas, through our new sustainable tourism plan. We started this process in 2017. We issued a request for proposal. We got about 25 companies who were interested in helping us with this plan. And with the help of the city and an advisory council, we chose the Nichols Tourism Group in association with ASU and their School of Sustainable Tourism. You may not know that ASU is one of only 2 schools in the U.S. for sustainable tourism next to Harvard. So we have a great resource right in our backyard. So we hired them and we asked them to help us figure out how to look at Sedona and tourism in a more sustainable way, in looking at the environment, the economy, and social aspects, really focusing on a nurturing community. So we created an advisory committee. We analyzed all of the existing trends, best practices, the existing research, and we did new research. So we did a resident survey. We asked them what they think about tourism. We did a business survey, a visitor survey. We did some focus groups with land managers and nonprofit groups. And we conducted 2 public forums right here in this room just a couple of months ago. And our plan has basically these key components. Starts out with the mission statement, some key pillars to focus on, objectives, tactics, all with the idea of a strong foundation for sustainable tourism development. So this is our mission. The mission of the plan is to lead the Sedona tourism industry in embracing sustainability practices that enable the long-term health of Sedona, focusing on our 4 pillars: the environment, an excellent quality of life, a quality of the economy, and the visitor experience. And we developed goals under each of these areas. And then along with each of those pillars are our main objectives. So our main objectives in the environmental category really focuses on waste prevention, waste retention and diversion strategies, encouraging minimal water use and focusing on better water quality, encouraging visitors and businesses to moderate their energy use, focusing on lessening the impacts to our land, including OHV noise and also helicopter tour noise, and educating and engaging visitors in a more meaningful way so that they truly understand how to walk gently on our land. In the resident quality of life area, our main objectives really focus on a lot of the transportation issues that we heard from our residents were a key issue for them. So using the visitor industry and our visitors to have a more positive impact on that and try to get our visitors out of their cars faster. So focuses on the shuttle system and encouraging use of that once it's developed, creating new infrastructure and encouraging new multimodal solutions, using technology in a more meaningful way to direct visitors, and deepen the engagement with Sedona residents so they truly understand the benefits of tourism and how tourism really impacts positively our quality of life. We need to do a better job of communicating with them. To develop new sustainability-focused experiences for both our residents and our visitors, and really looking at and managing current lodging and future lodging, because obviously lodging plays a major role in visitor capacity. In the quality of the economy, our key objectives are focused around maintaining an adequate level of economic activity and focusing on those need periods of summer and winter, expanding interagency collaboration with all of the great groups that are doing good work in Sedona, adjusting our marketing to achieve that balance, which you've seen that we've done a little bit of that in the last year, and really looking at new and innovative approaches to employee housing and employee training, because we hear from our businesses that that's a top priority for you. And then the visitor experience, really deepening the understanding of existing experiences for our visitors, and also working to disperse visitors so that they all don't go to Devil's Bridge or Cathedral Rock or Slide Rock, trying to move them around and spread them around a little bit more. So those are at a high level, that's where we're focused on. I'm going to just highlight some of the tactics. All of the planning documents can be found on our website, and I'll show you where that is. And these presentations too will be posted on the website so that you don't have to take too many notes here today with us. But some of our tactics include trail maintenance and funding trail maintenance, encouraging our partners and our businesses to support trail funding and the expansion of trails, supporting the new development of the Western Gateway Trail system, working with organizations like the Oak Creek Watershed Council to do more voluntourism programs so that when our visitors are here, they have the opportunity to participate and clean up Oak Creek Canyon and help maintain our trails and do more trail work, giving back to the communities that they're visiting. And this is certainly a hot trend in tourism and travel these days. So we want to capitalize on some of that. We want to get more electric vehicle charging stations around Sedona, encouraging visitors to use alternative fuels. Partnering with the Sustainability Alliance. How many of you in here are a certified business with the Sustainability Alliance? Our goal is to get more of those hands raised in the room, partnering with them for their certification program, and then encouraging businesses who may be at the silver level to increase their level of certification. Working to get more refillable water stations around the Sedona area in an effort to decrease the use of single-use plastics. Encouraging, starting maybe with our hotel partners who are already doing great work with water conservation, encouraging them to expand those efforts, and also working with other industry sectors as it relates to conservation of water. We need to do a better job of working together with the city to brand and get more recycling containers around the entire Sedona area. So our hope is to brand that in a consistent way to encourage our visitors to reuse and recycle. And working with not only our signature events like the Run Sedona event and the Wine Fest, but also our lodging partners who host big corporate groups, encouraging them to go zero waste for their events. So that will be a key tactic. Other tactics include expanding the Secret 7 campaign, which is an award-winning campaign for us, which is really trying to, again, disperse visitors to lesser-known trails that have more capacity to manage more parking and manage more visitor use. Working with Keep Sedona Beautiful and expanding their International Dark Sky certification and encouraging businesses to focus on our dark skies. Our straw-free program is just one step in trying to decrease the use of single-use plastics and that impact on our residents and our community. And developing a Tourism Cares pledge where businesses can actually put their words and their beliefs into action as it relates to sustainability and pledging back to the community certain levels of action that they will personally take as a business to show that their business cares about not only Sedona, but also the surrounding area and the planet. And then focusing on OHV noise, we know that this is an impact to our residents, along with helicopter noise, and working with those operators, along with other community groups who are doing great work in this area to encourage that. Trying to work on overflow at trailheads so that we don't have this overflow parking into neighborhoods, that's a problem. And helping develop a pledge that visitors can sign when they come into our area, where they pledge as our guests in Sedona to preserve and protect the beautiful and unique home. This is an example of the pledge from Palau. That was the first destination to actually do this in their passports. Every visitor had to sign this pledge to act kindly and explore mindfully. And I think we can all agree that we want our visitors to do that here in Sedona. And then a lot of our initiatives focus on transportation, looking at new parking facilities, getting visitors out of their car faster with new wayfinding programs, new You Are Here kiosks around the uptown area where visitors have a better idea of where they are and how to get to where they want to go. We have a lot of challenges right now with visitors trying to find their way back to parking lots. So these You Are Here signs will help them get to where they need to be. And working with the city to redesign new parking in alignment with or new signage in alignment with our brand to make sure that visitors and residents can find where they want to go. Utilizing technology, Walk Sedona is a great mobile program that uses your GPS, tells you exactly where you are and how long it will take you to walk from where you are to nearby restaurants or galleries or public restrooms. We designed a new app called a new mobile website called Park in Sedona that links to the parking meters and the municipal parking lot to tell you just how many parking spots are available in Uptown. You can see when this was taken, there were 23 parking spots available in Uptown. Imagine if every parking lot in Sedona was censored so that we can at any time, real live, see how many parking spaces are available, getting people off the roads faster and to where they want to be. Educating visitors on how to drive roundabouts, how to drive with bikes, looking at multimodal programs like bike share programs. Many of our hoteliers in Uptown already offer this. Expanding the Verdi Links program so it runs later and more often so that we can get our employees off the road, utilizing the traffic, the shuttle system. And really expanding our work with the Verde Valley Tourism Council so that we can leverage the National Geographic branding project that we have with this group to really support some of our conservation and sustainability efforts. Because after all, we know that 98% of our visitors they tell us that Sedona is an excellent or good place to visit. We want to keep it that way. Our residents in the National Citizen Survey that was completed last year, 87% that said that Sedona's quality of life is good or excellent, and 90% said that Sedona is an excellent or good place to live. And quite frankly, we want to keep it that way. And that's why we're really working so hard to balance all of these things, to make sure that we're really developing Sedona in a sustainable way. Let me point out too that none of this is going to be done in a silo. There's lots of groups, city, KSB, other nonprofits groups that are helping us with this plan to achieve a lot of these goals. And tomorrow we'll be presenting and going into more detail with the City Council on a lot of these objectives and tactics. So if you're interested in learning more on any of that, you can certainly attend that work session tomorrow at City Council. It's at 3 p.m. at City Council Chambers. Or you can go to sedonaSustainable.com. All of the research, all of the surveys, everything that I mentioned in today's presentation is listed on that website. So can I answer any questions about any of this? Don't be shy. Yeah.
Yeah, you gave us about a half a dozen different websites. Is there a place that we can go to that kind of has it all collected so we don't have to remember all those different URLs?
Yep, Sedona Sustainable. I think that's going to be your best resource for the plan. It outlines all of the tactics and has a sample of the draft plan already posted there, so you can see that. Yeah.
You glossed over the education of tourists about traffic circles, especially the double-lane traffic circles. Can you speak a little bit more as to what's being done so that each tourist, talking about signing a pledge, that each tourist is to be exposed to what traffic circle protocol might be in an attempt to decompress the congestion?
Right, sure.
Congested.
She asked if I can talk a little bit more about the education of visitors and how to navigate through Sedona.
Traffic circles particularly.
Traffic circles in particular. So we have a video that runs in all of the local hotel rooms. That's a video on how to drive a traffic circle. We also have information at our visitor center, where we have about 300,000 people go into our visitor center every year. Granted, they may have already come through 11 traffic circles to get to the visitor center, but we have information there. And also in our on our website, before they get to Sedona, they also receive a Experience Sedona guide. In the mail. We send out about 80,000 of those a year. We have information on how to drive a traffic circle. Certainly, can we do a better job of educating them before they come? Probably, and if you have any ideas on what more we can do, we're open to that.
I just do want to say that, you know, the ranger station, which I know is a different jurisdiction, is the gateway to the traffic circle experience.
That's true.
Perhaps that might be a great place to land and to also educate the rangers to make this part of every conversation with every tourist.
Absolutely, yeah. We can even see if the ranger station will run our video at the station. We'll check on that. Good idea. Yeah.
So you're talking about how the resident response, the responding more favorably to the quality of life and stuff. Is there any difference in response rate between those two surveys 10 years apart?
That I do not know. Does anyone from the city? Marty, do you know that answer? Do not know that answer. We can look into that. He asked if there was a difference in the response rate between the National Citizen Survey that was done 10 years ago and the one that was done just last year, and that I don't know. I'm sorry. One more question.
Yeah. So under the resident quality of life objectives, you had several tactics. And can you give some examples of how that would work in terms of how you would actualize? Just kind of paint a picture of, you know, when those are fulfilled, what it might look like.
Sure. So a lot of those really focus on trying to have visitors have less of an impact on traffic. So getting them out of their cars faster. So the wayfinding sign is an effort to get them to the parking lots faster. Of course, we're very strongly advocating for a public transit system because, quite frankly, I'm not sure if we have a tourism problem or if we have a traffic problem. And I feel like if we can get visitors off of the roads faster and to where they want to go and using public transit, that I think that will decrease the congestion that we're experiencing in the Sedona area. That being said, though, the more we have to understand, the more that we encourage walkability and multimodal use, the more pedestrian crossings we're going to have. That's going to impact the flow of traffic. So they're really, really all integrated and interrelated. But most of those quality of life issues, because what we heard in the surveys was that residents are very concerned with traffic and congestion. So that's why a lot of those tactics focus on those transportation initiatives and supporting the city's transportation initiatives, which actually leads us into our next topic, I think, quite well. Andy Dickey, who is our Director of Public Works and our city engineer, is here to give us an update on the Sedona in Motion projects, which is actually all of the projects that have been developed to help address these traffic and congestion issues. So please help me welcome Andy Dickey.
Good morning, everyone. is Sedona in Motion, or SIM, as we call it, program. This program includes the strategies and projects recommended by the Transportation Master Plan we completed last year. We currently have 12 projects.
Can you speak
Under-
closer to the mic?
Oh, sure. We currently have actually 13 projects underway within the 12 strategies of the SIM program. I'll talk more in detail on these different strategies and projects later on, but I just want to warn you that we don't have a lot of time. So I do have my business cards here. If you'd like to call my office and talk in more detail on some of the stuff that I might not cover, I'm certainly welcoming that and offering that as an option. I'd first like to quickly mention the development of the master plan and the SIM projects has included a extensive public outreach effort, thanks to the efforts of Marty and Lauren, some of our communications staff. We've engaged 3,500 people in survey responses. We've had numerous meetings and news coverage along the way since the beginning of the master plan. In the spring of 2016 is when that started. There we go. The first project and the first strategy, SIM 1, is the Uptown roadway improvements. This includes a median throughout Uptown and 2 roundabouts as the main project elements. This will control pedestrian traffic and conflicting turning movements and improve travel time throughout the corridor. I'd also like to mention here, we're also going to be coordinating the signals that we have in Uptown. However, I just want to mention that signal coordination alone does not provide for the pedestrian control and turning movement control that we need to make that corridor efficient. We've completed our design concept report for this project and recently completed the 60% design. We've reached out to the public to gain concepts for aesthetic improvements for the median design. And we're developing a business support plan which would be implemented during construction. Our 90% design is expected to be delivered next month for this project, with construction anticipated to begin in late May after the busy tourism season. SIM 2 is the Uptown Pedestrian Improvements Project, and there's nothing to report in the near term, so I'm going to go to SIM 3 here. This overlaps with some of the information you heard earlier. This project includes parking improvements and wayfinding sign development. This will help folks find destinations more efficiently, as discussed earlier. Sign needs have been identified actually throughout the city. However, you've seen some parking and pedestrian signs already installed in the Uptown area. Other signage right now is actually going through a permitting process with ADOT. Most of that's within ADOT jurisdiction, so it's going through that. We're utilizing paid parking revenues for pedestrian kiosks that will be installed in Uptown and for a parking garage site study, and that will proceed later this fiscal year. SIM 4 includes improvements on SR 179. This project here includes bypass lanes at the Y roundabout. There is actually a difference between traffic circles and roundabouts, by the way, but we won't go into that. For this project, the city is partnering with ADOT since it's within ADOT jurisdiction. The improvements would reduce conflicts within the roundabout and improve efficiency of the overall intersection. We've currently approved an agreement between the city and ADOT, and it's pending ADOT approval currently. Design is expected to move forward this fiscal year. However, before that proceeds, we would have a public outreach effort for that, and construction would begin for this project 2 years from now. Also included in SIM 4 is this project here, which is a feasibility study of the pedestrian crossing at the, adjacent to the Talakipaki development. Here we're considering whether an overpass, an underpass, or a shared use path which would cross underneath the Oak Creek Bridge, or additional pedestrian control at the existing crossing would be most appropriate. We also wanted to mention here that the owners of Talakipaki have committed $18,000 in support of this project, and the study is approximately 30% complete. Sim 5 is the major roadway connections. The first project here, this extends Forest Road to SR 89A. That would be west of the post office where it would connect. The improvements would provide an alternate connection to Uptown. And this first feasibility study here for this major roadway connection is nearly complete. Recently, we conducted a survey which had a high rate of response, nearly 50%, or approximately 50%. And in general, I won't go into details on the specifics of the survey, but I can say in general, 70% of the respondents supported the extension. I also want to mention that many of the adjacent owners of properties did not support the project. Recently, council has directed staff to continue with developing further information to help consider options for this project. Sim 6 includes neighborhood connections. These connections are not intended to be regional bypass routes, and they wouldn't be signed that way. These would be local connections. Recent events have highlighted what the benefit of these connections would be. When we have an accident, for instance, local areas become disconnected and access is constricted. In addition, with the recent snow event, although the city provides storm removal and resources are limited because our snow events are not often, therefore we have a couple of large trucks with blades and we do provide snow removal. However, we have to prioritize the main routes throughout town, and this is for emergency response to critical facilities throughout the city. Local areas, however, become a lower priority and access is therefore limited. Having additional points of access to these local areas would therefore be a benefit. This strategy, however, is on hold at this time, because we've reached out to some areas where we felt like connection made a lot of sense. However, there was no support for those connections. So it will remain on hold at this time until there is further support for a specific connection somewhere in the city. Sims 7 and 8 include enhanced transit service. We're looking at various options for transit in the city. We've utilized federal and county funding to begin an implementation plan for improvement. This study is in process and scheduled to be complete by the end of this fiscal year. Sim 11 includes pedestrian and bicycle facility improvements. So this is kind of our multimodal area of our program. We're currently under contract to design and complete several segments of shared use path. We're putting together a work group to further identify other projects that we can complete under this strategy as well. We're also looking to install green bike lanes, which you can see something similar to this, at transitional areas throughout West Sedona along 89A. This will be coordinated with ADOT, and the city of Sedona would be the first city within ADOT jurisdiction to have these improvements installed. You've probably seen some of these throughout other cities in Arizona, but it's outside of ADOT jurisdiction. Finally, I'll cover Sim 12. This includes our traveler information. We've been collecting travel time data since February of 2017. This has allowed us to quantify delay frequency, duration, and magnitude. We're working with ADOT to display travel times to Sedona along I-17, you've likely seen these signs over the past few weeks. So this is in process, and we continue to work with ADOT on what the messages should be on those signs to most effectively inform the traveler. We're also performing analytics with the data that we have to determine the level of effectiveness of our proposed improvements, where and when to implement traffic control, and how to make travel more efficient. I might have gone too fast, actually. Do I have tons of time? We always want to mention that if you want more information more frequently, please visit our website. We have several sites that are set up to help inform the public on this process. And with that, I believe I have a question slide. Oops. No, I guess I didn't have questions. Okay. Yes, sir.
Where are we in relations to pedestrian-only crossings in West Sedona? Is that just on standstill?
Pedestrian-only crossings?
Yes.
In other words, not allowing bicycles to cross?
No, it was intersections where it's not a lighted intersection for a pedestrian to cross. I think it's page 115 of the same.
You're talking about West Sedona access?
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
get across, so you don't have to walk 2 miles that way to get to somewhere.
Right, right. Yeah, that is SIM 10, I believe, which I didn't cover because that's a more long-term strategy. So it's on our radar, it's just not in the near term. So, let's see, I think you were first.
Question on SIM 4, because I saw that earlier on when we were first presenting this, and love the idea of being able to make those right turns easier and faster. But it seems like in both cases, you're just gonna dump people into traffic. So particularly if someone's coming from 89A going toward Tlaquepaque, it seems that the problem isn't getting around the roundabout, it seems that it is that you've got a line of traffic on 179 that's preventing that from, that's backing that up. So just reference to that relative to how you solve that.
So when you're within the roundabout, every turning movement that occurs, whether it be, you know, this right turn here versus a left turn coming southbound, those are all conflicting movements. And every time you have that conflict, it reduces the efficiency of the roundabout. So if we're able to split out these bypass lanes, which are common in some other roundabouts, you're able to reduce the conflict in the intersection. So you may be moving that conflict further down, but it's moving it out of the roundabout so that the roundabout and the intersection can work more efficiently. That's the concept.
Let me rephrase the question then, because I look at both of those being living here and going, if you're in that roundabout headed to uptown, quite often that traffic is already backed up to that roundabout.
Right.
So getting you faster through the roundabout, which may solve some problem on the other half of the roundabout, doesn't solve the problem of getting people out of that roundabout into uptown.
So you're going northbound into uptown?
Well, either one of those two orange things. Both
Yeah.
of them, I find quite often are backed
So,
up all the way to that
You're
roundabout.
talking about the Cooks Hill backup here. So Cooks Hill is the hill that's, you know, downstream of this.
Down from Tlaquepaque
Uptown and Tlaquepaque.
and
Okay,
uptown.
sure.
Yeah, so by splitting out this traffic, they never have to enter the roundabout. So you're able to take out conflict that's occurring. You're not gonna take out every conflict, but you're gonna take out conflict and therefore improve efficiency of the overall intersection. Because those movements are constantly occurring.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
One of the alternate things that hasn't been addressed right here, and that does not address, is for the traffic that is going down Cook Hill through the roundabouts, especially the uptown roundabout, and going into uptown. When you get a backup from Tlaquepaque crosswalk right there, which is not being addressed adequately in my opinion, sometimes it is, and the whole problem disappears within minutes. You get that, you get people who are turning, making the left turn from southbound from westbound to southbound. They will block that lane, nobody moves, the whole
Right.
thing shuts down right there, and it backs right up to the airport road in minutes.
Right, that's exactly what I was just talking about. So by splitting out this lane here, this bypass lane is able to make this turn, and it's reducing that conflict between the left turning traffic coming out of Uptown and the northbound to southbound traffic to 179. You still have the northbound to northbound traffic there, but you're reducing those conflicts is what I'm talking about.
Has any thought been put in there, and it was done on the 89 going up into Uptown, where you put labels on the road signifying which lane you should be in? Has any thought been done into putting that onto Cook Hill going southbound? Because you'll not get 100% compliance,
Right.
but a lot of the problem that blocks down the left lane is people who will not get into the right lane until the last second.
Yeah.
And they lock that lane down, both of them are now locked down, and nobody moves.
So the challenge with that, if you go back to when these improvements were first built by ADOT, we asked them to put some of those pavement markings in place. The reason why you see them up here is because that's in city jurisdiction. They won't allow those pavement markings here. We'll still keep asking them, but so far they said no. Yes, sir.
Has there any thought about making a connection off of Verde Valley School Road across to 89A?
Yes, that's actually SIM 13, and I don't mention that because it's a long-term strategy. And it's not within city jurisdiction, so it's not been made a high priority. But it is something that's been identified as a potential improvement for traffic. I won't go into a lot of detail here now, but it's really more related to a local connection than a regional bypass when you really consider what the benefit would be. More questions? Yes, sir.
In SIM 4, has Brewer Road ever been talked about, including in the plan? You're talking about congestion in that roundabout to get them in utilizing Brewer Road and use that island per se like a huge roundabout, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, so you're talking about improving the Ranger to Brewer connection.
If they're coming down Cooks Hill,
Mhm.
sign it however we need to do it. If we want to go 179,
Right.
utilize Brewer Road down to Ranger and then merge back into 179. Has that been thought about?
It has. And it actually, there is an improvement conceived, you know, in a long-term CIP as something that we would eventually look at, because that connection between 179 and 89 has such a demand that eventually it will exceed what our facility can provide, even if we build the bypass lanes. What we're trying to do with our existing infrastructure is reduce the choke points that we have now. It's called the Heart of Sedona. It's been thought about for many years, actually. The idea of improving Ranger to Brewer to 89. I'm not
That's
doing
me.
that. Oh, okay.
Continuing on with SIM 4, the studies that have been done, have we identified the major throughput issues through those roundabouts that we've been discussing? Have we prioritized them at all, as which is causing the most throughput? And have we set any small ideas in motion on those major items? I used Tlaquepaque as my reference
Oh,
for throughput through all these areas. Like other people have said, when the circles don't move, it backs all the way in both
Yeah.
directions. So what's the most probable cause to improve that? In my opinion, some small items in Tlaquepaque, ever since the other side of the street has been opened up, a major part of this problem has occurred.
so that was the second SIM 4 project that I was talking about, the feasibility study, looking at either an overpass or an underpass or some of those options.
But have we identified that as a major throughput issue?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
And that goes back to SIM 12, where we're collecting travel time data. We do know when our backups occur, and we do our best to bring out traffic control and put it in place during the times that we've predicted through our analytics when those when that congestion will occur.
I don't wanna make, take up too much time, but it sounds to me, for me, it is one of the major throughput issues. And there are some non-manpower required, non-manpower necessary to take some small steps. People start at the lock of pocket, waving that they're coming across.
Mhm.
There are other issues of trying to cross that road. Some one point of crossing the road, and that controlled by a well-timed light that are in existence everywhere.
Yeah.
I don't wanna solve the problem, I just wanna make sure that it is identified as a top throughput
So
issue.
I will really quickly throw out there that we've studied it to the point that we know it's not just the pedestrian activity that's causing it.
Right.
It's left turn movements through the Schnelly roundabout. And so I did want to actually, within 7.5, there's another project that we're looking at that would connect Portal Lane to Ranger Road and would reduce some of that conflict and some of those vehicle, some of that volume issue that we have there. So I think we're out of time.
And Andy did mention, SedonaAZ.gov, SIM News is a great resource for all of the information that Andy shared with us. Thanks, Andy. Next up is an update from Mike Raber, our senior planner in the Long Range Planning Division of the City of Sedona, to give us an update on the Land Development Code. Mike.
Thanks, Jennifer, and thank you all for having me this morning to talk about our new land development code. The City Council adopted our new land development code in November, and it's now been in effect only a few weeks. We began working on an update of the code about 2 years ago with the consulting firm of Clarion Associates. And so what is the land development code and why is it significant? What's its significance to the community? The LDC, we call it, Land Development Code LDC, is a regulatory document that governs land uses, design of buildings, standards for things like parking, landscaping, fences, color. So it answers questions like what can I do on my property, where can I build, and how good does development have to be. The Land Development Code also provides the regulations for how development is reviewed and approved, which is a very important part of the code. The LDC is also a tool to implement the Sedona Community Plan, helping turn the plan's more general goals into reality. Our general plan or our community plan is really very high level, and the Land Development Code is a more detailed way of implementing that plan. So this is the first comprehensive update of the code since it was originally adopted in 1994. And although the code went through a lot of changes since those early days, and over the years it was still really badly out of date and difficult to use. And so the main goals of the plan were the main goals of this update were to make the document more user-friendly, easier to understand, provide clear direction for development, reflect best practices, and implement the community plan and address the goals in what we call our adopted community focus area plans, or CFA plans. And you'll hear a little bit more about the CFA plans later in the presentation. They're much more specific than our community plan, and they focus on specific areas of the community, parts of the city. And we've adopted some of those already for what we call the Western Gateway, which is the area around the Cultural Park, the Soldier Pass Road area in 89A, and the Schnebly Hill Road area. And so those themes that come out of our community plan and in our CFA plans, we want to address through this new code update. Things like mixed-use development, creating a more walkable, bikeable community. And probably one of the most significant is finding ways to address our workforce housing needs. In creating a more user-friendly document, we looked at the code's format, creating a page layout that was easier to follow with more graphics, also including new illustrations. And we provided a simpler and more logical organization, going from 9 different chapters or articles in the previous code to 9, for example. And we also looked and worked at simplifying our zoning districts by consolidating similar zones. We had 11 single-family residential zones that went down to 5, and 2 commercial zones that we consolidated into 1. So the end result was going from 32 different zones in our code down to 21. But more than just making the code simpler, we also added new mixed-use zones that could be used to implement the new CFA plans. So you see those listed as M1, M2, and M3 up there. We also revised our lot and building standards to provide commercial projects with greater latitude for lot coverage. This was to help commercial properties be able to utilize more of their land. One thing we found with our old code was that there's a lot of unused land that occurs with the commercial development that we wanted to make sure we could be more efficient with that use. The next key component of our new code was the use regulations, and in our previous code, each zone tried to list all the uses that would be allowable. And just to illustrate how out of date the code was, our commercial zones even allowed telegraph offices. And so this has been in there for who knows how many years. So this kind of illustrates a list of all of the general retail uses that were listed in our code. There's so many different ways of describing what kind of use. We simplified that by describing general retail now with 3 use types that are based on size rather than all the different types of sub-uses that can be. And so we put that all now in an easy-to-read table of allowed uses that's been updated and simplified. And that section, this section here shows the residential uses. This would have covered many pages in the old code. So in addition to simplifying the use regulations, some new ones were also added. And one you might have heard about was our urban agriculture use, specifically keeping chickens and bees in the community, which is now allowed in the new code. This generated a lot of interest during the development of the land development code, and in fact seemed to actually generate more interest than all of the other additions combined. The keeping of chickens and bees is allowed as an accessory use with a permit now in all the zones in the code. And for the keeping of chickens, if you have a property of 20,000 square feet or less, you can have 4 chickens. If you have bigger lots, you can have 6. And then there are other rules too for setbacks and restrictions near water courses and stuff. And for beekeeping, you can have 2 hives. There are other requirements like flyaway barriers, access to water, and we do have a requirement that the city notify neighbors within 100 feet. One thing I did want to point out is these urban agriculture provisions don't go into effect until the end of March, and that is giving us time to create a permitting process and some other changes that we need to make as well. Another component of the new code is the development standards. These are the regulations that cover things like access and connectivity, parking, grading, drainage, landscaping, things like exterior lighting, buildings, including color, materials, and also subdivision design. One of the challenges here was how to simplify the organization and application of the standards we had in 2 major sections of the code. We had one section that was nothing but all the regulations. And the other section is called our design review manual, which was really a series of guidelines. Trying to mesh those together was a challenge because a lot of those guidelines don't translate very well into a regulatory framework. And so some of those guidelines are now in a separate administrative manual that talks more about kind of the thinking behind some of those ideas rather than just the rules and regulations. So the last key component of the new land development code was the administrative procedures section, administration and procedures section. And this is the article that spells out how all development is reviewed, everything from single-family homes to subdivisions and rezonings. One of the problems with the previous code was its redundancy. In the previous code, common review procedures were often repeated in several places, so that's now all been consolidated in one section. The old code also listed all the requirements for different applications, everything that you had to have to make your application, that's all been removed and put in an administrative manual now. Make that a lot easier to wade through. But in addition to simplifying the procedures, we were also aware that the review process for applicants was also often very time consuming. And it often projected a degree of uncertainty even for minor commercial business expansions or commercial projects. And that was because of the public hearing requirement and approval process through the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so that often interjected a degree of uncertainty for applicants. So we made significant changes to the thresholds for public hearings, and at the point at which, excuse me, I got a little bit of a cold getting over. And the point at which review could be accomplished by staff versus through the Planning Commission. So now, commercial development of 5,000 square feet or less can be reviewed and approved by staff, where it used to be anything over 2,000 square feet went to the Planning Commission in a public hearing. And likewise with new residential projects, anything with 10 dwelling units or less can now be reviewed and approved by staff. And the old code required anything more than 2 units had to go through the Planning Commission public hearing process. So the last little bit of this presentation, I wanted to end with some things we've done to address one of the most serious issues that we have in the community, and that's the lack of workforce housing and housing diversity. And this is a policy priority of the City Council. It's also one of the highlights of our community plan in terms of issues for the community's future. There are 5 key tools that we added to the Land Development Code to address this. And the first of these has to do with dwelling unit size and density. We would allow a project in a multifamily zone to have smaller units that would count less toward their maximum density requirement. And for example, on projects that would otherwise already be reaching their maximum allowable density, if they provided studio apartments at 500 square feet or less, we would only count that as half a unit for density purposes. The bottom line is they could add some additional units, and those smaller units also help us address a housing need in the community as well. Along with that, we also added a provision for units that are truly deed restricted to be affordable, that those units would not count toward the maximum density allowed. So on a project that has reached its maximum density, say it's 12 units per acre, for instance, they could add additional units if those were truly deed restricted to be affordable. We also now have a process to provide flexibility for development standards such as building height, density, setbacks, other standards like that, for projects that are within an area where a CFA plan has been adopted. And the significance of that is that the CFA plan may actually recommend things that go beyond what the Land Development Code regulates, and we want to be sure that we have a mechanism to do that administratively to allow an applicant to maybe exceed the standards that are in the code if the CFA plan supports that. An example would be if we had a CFA plan that supported 3 stories or height of 40 feet, for instance, rather than our current 2-story, 30 feet, 22 feet, whatever. They could do that provided that the CFA plan said that that was something that was one of the goals of the plan. We could do that administratively now without that requiring a rezoning or going through a community plan amendment. We also added the ability to do housing as an accessory use to schools with an additional use permit. Previously, that would have generally required at least a zone change, possibly a community plan amendment. So that's another avenue for encouraging additional housing. And we also now allow multifamily within our commercial, industrial, and lodging districts. And previously, that had to be part of a mixed-use development. Could have required a zone change to actually allow a standalone apartment complex in a commercial zone, for instance. And so now we would allow that. And I'm gonna end there. I think I'm probably close to my time, but that's a very general overview of very detailed, complex documents. Obviously, if you have any questions, please feel free to call me. I did forget to bring my cards, but I'm easy to find through City Hall and through our city offices. So thank you. I'd be happy to answer the questions. Yes.
So high-density housing certainly go a long way to helping our affordable housing issues. However, if that high-density housing gets turned into Airbnbs, it actually makes things worse with respect to our traffic issues and so forth. So how does the code enable one and prevent the other?
Well, I think part of where we can restrict that would be through the deed restricted housing options. So if somebody wanted to, if we were really looking for an affordable project and somebody could bring forward a deed restriction that would prevent that, that would be one way to see that restricted. Otherwise, yeah, that is always an issue for any high density housing that we have, or any housing that we have. Yes.
This verbiage behind the smaller studio type places to live, has there studies been done anywhere that indicate the percentage of usage of those once they're built? How full are they? How often are they used? I wonder if it is a solution if it's only half full or 30%.
I couldn't really respond to that, but I can tell you that we don't have very many units of that size in this community.
But you're promoting that.
Yes, and that's
So
one
would you want to
thing.
know if it's a successful venture somewhere else? Some data that will tell you that.
And that may be something we can collect once we started seeing those built.
No, and nowhere else they're built. Any other city, any other location, any high density, high visitor area that has done this and says it's very successful. We're full all the time.
Oh, you're saying you have other places that's
Yeah.
successful, and that I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
Maybe could we find out? I'll try to find it.
Okay. Yes.
In regards to the low-income, deed restricted, like affordable housing, is the city of Sedona using a common standard to define what that means for the average worker or for the average developer?
I think we look to our development guidelines for affordable housing document that we have, and essentially we would probably be targeting like an 80% AMI or a median income.
80%.
Yeah, and really try to encourage that. Thank you.
Mike. It's, I think, hard to explain a lot of changes and technical issues, so thanks for doing that for us, Mike. I appreciate it. Next up is our Director of Marketing, Michelle Conway. She's going to give us an update on our efforts with our winter marketing campaign. So please help me welcome Michelle.
I'm going to quickly jump off that because I asked Jen, I said, can you please take my big mug off the opening slide? But anyhow, nice to be here. Good morning to everyone. Really appreciate your time. And I am happy to share some of our latest work with you. So to start, the Sedona Chamber of Commerce and Tourism Bureau is a destination management and marketing organization, or DMMO. We're one of 218 across the country as accredited We are one of only 5 in the state of Arizona. Additionally, Jennifer, as our CEO and president, is a certified destination management executive. That is the industry's highest individual educational achievement for destination leaders. I'm mentioning all of this because I think it's important for you to know that what we do because we have a good foundation of knowledge and know-how and industry standards and best practices and leadership and time. Those accreditations were not easily achieved. They took a lot of time and effort and know-how. So just mentioning that to you so you're aware that when we put together the marketing, when we put together our sales programs, our public relations, our communications, our social media, all of it is done with a lot of consideration behind them and strategic thought. And the reason, again, why I'm telling you that is because we are invested in the community. We are very invested in also ensuring that we do lead that balance that Jennifer mentioned earlier. And we also know that we are well aware of the positive impacts of tourism. Here are some of those. Tourism is a $600 million industry in Sedona. Tourism supports over 10,000 jobs and generates nearly $200 million in wages. Sedona visitors add almost $15 million in local taxes, which provide vital services and quality of life for residents. But as Jen had mentioned, we know that it is all about balance. So much of what we've been focused on is finding that sweet spot, a place where not only business is thriving, but also where the environment is protected and quality of life is maintained. The sweet spot also weighs in on how we market and manage visitors. So who is our visitor, you ask? Well, we do invite everyone. So Sedona is a welcoming community. We do welcome everyone, but when it comes to paid advertising, the best approach is, the most fiscally responsible approach is to target your audience. So we do define that as such. Couples between the ages of 35 to 54 who have an annual household income of $150,000 a year or more. We target those who are college educated and are inclined to take 3 trips a year. We also promote Sedona only during our need seasons of summer and winter. So again, I'll repeat, we do not market Sedona when the town is already busy in spring and fall. Where do our visitors come from? We target Phoenix and the Los Angeles area residents, usually in the summer months. In the winter, we reach further in our geography to those who desperately need to see our red rocks and our blue skies. Poor Chicago. We introduced Sedona to Chicago last winter, and we saw great success with that campaign with the use of TV, billboards, and a ton of digital advertising and social media ads. The results were very positive. You all, as a business, those of you who are in business, have shared with us that you saw a significant uptick in Chicago residents visiting us. We saw a 208% increase in site traffic, specifically from that market during the time of our campaign. We also generated over 53 million impressions from the time of the campaign, which was November through February. The success of our campaign was in part due to our partnership with the Arizona Office of Tourism, who was also advertising in Chicago during that time. That was intentional. We wanted to leverage what they did for additional exposure at no cost. So they showcased our images like the one here, which is absolutely unbelievable. We're very fortunate that they love our red rocks as much as we do. So needless to say, it made a lot of sense to use this strategy again this year. So our campaign has been running, it's running right now, still in Chicago, since November, and will wrap up at the end of this month. AOT, or the Arizona Office of Tourism, continues to be a strong supporter of Sedona, using us as the star of the show in much of their advertising. This is the AAA Living Magazine Midwest Edition ad. And should stop, pause here. Now I'm actually going to switch gears to what we've been doing in Phoenix during the November-December timeframe. So while we had all the Chicago marketing happening in Phoenix, in about mid-November through the 16th of December, we let the Phoenicians know about the Sedona Northern Lights event. Sedona Northern Lights was created, this is the second year that we ran the event, and it was created to celebrate Sedona's dark skies as well as to help bring business in that particularly slow week. Last year's event did just that. Hotel occupancy increased by 7%, 12%, and 2.5% the Friday, Saturday, and Sunday of the event. So this year, we repeated the strategy. From late November through mid-December, as I mentioned, we ran extensive digital advertising, billboards, and television in Phoenix, while locally we blanketed the hotels, the restaurants, the retail shops here with printed postcard maps as well as posters. And then we leveraged our Walk Sedona app and added a filter for this event so that visitors and locals could see where all the viewing places are. We don't yet have the numbers from this year's event. Happy to report those later, but we do know that locals and visitors of all ages continue to be entertained and amazed, and we have been hearing anecdotally that the businesses did see some uptick due to the event that weekend. So the third prong of what's been happening actually third of four that's happening this winter is the Utopia campaign. Following the hustle and bustle of the holidays, we are now reminding Phoenicians to start their new year off great, to recharge, reconnect, get inspired, set your intentions in the most beautiful place on earth. Sedona is a major destination for wellness, as you know, and the beginning of the year is obviously a very perfect time to communicate that message. We're running the Utopia campaign now up until Valentine's Day, which marks the start of our peak season. We're using TV, digital ads, social media advertising, and billboards. And finally, the fourth prong of our winter marketing efforts is event promotion. We like to take advantage of major events in the Valley and witness the most beautiful place on earth. So we leveraged this year the Barrett-Jackson event, which is taking place, I believe it's the 12th through the 20th. And we've been promoting Sedona to those who were planning to visit. So we got them in the trip planning phase while they're looking at the program, or we have an ad in the program book while they're online on barrettjackson.com. We've got our ads there. So we're hoping to get them while they're planning their trip to Arizona, specifically for this event. And then we're also being promoted while they're here in town with email blasts and digital advertising. Here's a sample of the concept, really pretty simple. The most beautiful place on earth, just 90 minutes away. 90 minutes sounds a little better than 2 hours, and I think we can make it in 90 minutes. So that's what the message people are telling us that it resonated with them. So we continue to use that, and we're reminding them to stay more than a day. That's a key point, because we don't want just traffic, right? We're trying to think about a very targeted audience, an affluent audience who can stay overnight. We want fewer people to stay longer and not clog up our streets. So our goal is to always implant a stay more than a day idea or concept. So you might ask, or you might want to know, that much of what we're doing here is not only communicated through advertising. We, as an office, are very close-knit and we collaborate extensively. So from a social media standpoint, that supports our goals too. Our social media, managed by Keegan Moorcroft, our Director of Communications. Our bases continue to grow year over year at enormous rates as we engage people on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Pinterest, all at no cost. So that's a no-cost situation, which is awesome. We continue to focus our messaging with weekly posts that support our brand pillars of arts and culture, wellness, outdoor adventure, and sustainability. We are also slightly increasing our efforts this year in the travel trade sales to boost business during the need periods and also extend length of stay. And then we are elevating our efforts in the meeting group sales area to increase midweek business. Ultimately, everything that we're doing points to what I had mentioned before, kind of a less is more thought. We believe that one visitor staying 3 days is kinder to our land, is kinder to our traffic issue, the potential traffic issues that we have, better for our residents than 3 visitors staying 1 day. And we're focused more than ever on minimizing tourism's negative impacts, not merely advertising to bring in the masses. And I know Jennifer had touched quite a bit on that earlier, so. Are there any questions? Yes, sir.
I'm not a marketing person, so you are, but doesn't the only 90 minutes away kind of conflict with the day tripping thing? Encouraging Venetians, it's only a short trip. It seems to conflict with that goal of getting longer tourist business.
Well, I think the idea is that we're trying to show that we're close. Because the 90 minutes away, a lot of those folks that are seeing that message are new to Arizona. They don't know how close we are. So we're trying to imply that we're not that far from their original destination. And then the subsequent very strong supporting messages to plan your visit. But I understand what you're saying. Yes, sir.
I just have a question about the what's in it for me. What you have been talking about, marketing our city as a world-class destination and so on and so forth is obviously a good thing. It's good for business, so on. But what are we getting as residents, as people who live here year-round? What is the impact of your work and of people, with your specialty to the residents? Because I saw your slide about 100 million of this, 10,000 jobs. But I don't own a business, I don't, pay parking lots, I just live here. So what's in it for me? Could you show us some bullet points about that? How does all this tourism make the city services that I rely on day in and day out better?
So visitors generate 66% of the operating sales tax. So that contribute to the general fund. So that helps with your road improvements, with city parks, all of which I know our residents value. Additionally, I know I enjoy going to Hudson, and I know there's a great mix of people, of both visitors and locals there. So I am confident that if it wasn't for the visitor audience, we wouldn't have Mariposa and the Hudson and Purchase of Fuego and all sorts of levels.
The Mariposa and the Hudson, those are two places to eat, and by the way, they're not locally affordable. I mean,
Do any of our businesses have an answer to that question? Does anyone want to try to answer that question?
Hey, why don't you, a 1 minute answer?
Sales taxes that are brought in by tourists keep our taxes lower. We'll start there. Second, I have a business, and I was able to move my business and have clients come to work with us from all over the country, and I was able to live here because it's beautiful red rocks, dude. So the same reason that we are all choosing to live here, the fact that we have tourists coming to visit us makes it easier for us to afford living here.
Arthur, what's your answer?
Well, basically, that was a big part. The other thing is to keep in mind right now, for those who have been here for at least a couple of years, your increase in property value, what some of us bank on to continue living here, is because of that tourism. That draw of new blood is what keeps those property values up. That's why Aspen is so outrageously expensive. Why Scottsdale is so outrageously expensive.
I'd like to make one.
Because that tourism bring in that new blood, the desire to come here and live here.
Before we hit Steve, no property tax.
No property tax.
Steve?
Yeah, I'd kind of like just to bring up that I think we need to come out of the closet. I think we need to say the word. We are a tourist town. And we seem to be afraid to say it. So what we do is we hide behind saying, well, what are we going to do for the locals? We're all locals. We live in a great town with over 100 restaurants. We get to meet great people from all over the world. We live in a beautiful area, and we all moved here knowing this was a tourist town. So come on, let's work together and accept the tourists for what they are, a great asset. We have over 10,000 people that make a living here. We have 8,000 people that live here part-time, a lot of them, and we have almost 10 to 20,000 people a day that visit. We have to share the whole area, guys.
Thank you for your question. We have time for one more. Yes, sir? Hi.
I think your idea of Barrett Jackson is excellent. You go back to your targeting audience. People that go to that auction spend millions or more on a vehicle. And they work their way down to 15, 20,000. But I think targeting that particular event in the wintertime, anything you can do to improve it, will return revenue. Those people have the money, I guess is what I'm saying.
Agreed. Thank you for acknowledging that too. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for your time.
And one more thought on that, as we do truly focus on bringing overnight visitors to the area, we do need to recognize that day trippers are an important part of our economy. 40% of our visitors are repeat visitors, which is a very high percentage of visitors. So oftentimes they're coming here first on a day trip. The number one complaint that our visitors have is their time in Sedona was too short. Beautiful complaint. So next up is Molly Spangler. Molly is our Economic Development Director with the City of Sedona. And she is here to talk to us about some resources that are available to you as small business owners, and also talk a little bit about our loan program. So please help me welcome Molly.
So last night, I was timing my presentation in our kitchen with my 5-year-old son, who told me it was really boring. So all I did was talk. And he suggested maybe I make some faces or like some funny noises, but please don't make me do that. So, as Jen mentioned, I want to talk, I'm going to move this so I can see this. I want to talk, can you see? A little bit about small business assistance for our Sedona businesses. But before I get into those details, I want to just take a step back and talk a little bit about how I look at the strategies and the process of economic development and what economic diversification is. I look at it as building blocks, maybe a hierarchy of needs, ingredients for a recipe, any other metaphor, like that's how I look at it. We had Mike Raver talking this morning. Mike was talking this morning about the Land Development Code. So, at the base level, we need to have a role of public policy and engagement and leadership. And so we've got our community plan guiding us for economic diversification. We had changes made in the land code to be more business friendly. The city invested in an economic development office a couple of years ago. Then next, some of the other ingredients are infrastructure. Road, water, sewer. A lot of times when we talk to some of the younger entrepreneurs and the people who are more location neutral, who want to relocate in Sedona, broadband, that's another piece of infrastructure. Workforce development, not just an issue of are they a skilled workforce, but is there enough workforce to fill those vacancies? Quality of life, I think we know a lot about the quality of life in Sedona, but it also means access to healthcare, access to housing, access to good education. So those are all components. And within those components and those assets, we start looking at our business development and our existing businesses and what they need to continue to thrive, what entrepreneurs need. And then lastly, if there are some of those ingredients missing, that's when we start talking about recruitment. So I could spend all day, but I know you guys have lives, talking on these, but for now, I really just want to talk about our existing businesses and our entrepreneurs here in Sedona. It's probably no secret that 100% of the businesses I meet with are small businesses here in Sedona. How many are small businesses today in Sedona and work for small businesses? Thank you. Thank you so much for your contribution here to our community. It is the lifeblood of Sedona. Small businesses are our country's #1 job creator. In fact, in the last recovery, over 60% of those net new jobs came from small businesses. So those are our friends and family here in this room. Our small businesses are innovators. They contribute to their local economy. They volunteer. They show up at the Community Pulse. They donate to our local nonprofits. So needless to say, they're important, and we need to continue to seek out ways to support them. So on your table, sorry, I've got a few things here. On your table is picture, kind of a large postcard, and on the back it looks just like this. There's a lovely little picture of me for your, for you guys to put on your fridge or whatever. But this is what I like to call my menu of services. These are services that many people are unfamiliar, that are available to our small businesses, and most of them are at no cost. You see the chamber on there, you see SCORE, Wade Bell is here representing, hope you're representing SCORE. Yes. But today I really want to introduce you to a couple of these small business resources that I don't think always get the attention and people aren't always aware of. So first, I want to talk about the Small Business Development Center, SBDC. We speak in a lot of acronyms, so slow me down if I'm getting ahead of you. But we have a new counselor. Her name's Ruth Ellen Oliski. She's in the back of the room. Hi. Yeah. But she is one of a much larger team, and they are here to help with startups, existing businesses, business counseling, and classes. The Small Business Development Center is funded through our Small Business Administration, SBA. Maybe some of you have heard of SBA loans. SBA also sponsors the Small Business Development Center through their federal funds. So if you go in to work with them, it's at no extra cost to you. You've already paid for it in your taxes. They help you with business planning. They can help with workshops and trainings. I routinely partner with them and our businesses to make sure that they can have that third-party view to help their business. They have a lot of expertise in helping existing businesses. One of the common problems I see in Sedona is a business comes in, they've been successful for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. It's hard. Business is hard. And they think that they think that they're doing great, but I think with that extra third-party view, you could take your existing business and really expand it and help it thrive and add those new jobs and be that economic engine that we know you are. The SBDC team comes with a national network. So if you have an issue with patenting or something specific with a particular type of widget and our local team doesn't have that expertise, they can call Maricopa County, they can call resources, in New York and tie in with one of those counselors. Obviously I'm a big fan of them. I have worked with the SBDC in Illinois and in my career in Wyoming, and I think we've got one of the best teams here in Arizona. Next, I want to introduce you to NACET, another acronym. It is the Northern Arizona Center for Entrepreneurship and Technology. You may be familiar with them because they run an incubator in Flagstaff, the Northern Arizona Incubator. It is in Flagstaff, but they offer virtual services to folks in Sedona. So you don't have to be in their incubator, you can still take advantage of their resources. They provide things like access to capital and that mentorship, and they also can help with patent and patenting and licensing. And they provide some pretty good entrepreneurial training courses. In fact, in the past year, I've worked with them on some business boot camps in Sedona. I have worked with them on some workshops, and we wrote another grant, and we're going to be doing some more of those in the next year. So pretty excited about this. It's on your table. Save the date. What is it? It is a Shark Tank inspired event. Are many of you familiar with Shark Tank on TV? Okay. We are going to be bringing one of these to the Verde Valley. The city is partnering with the Verde Valley Regional Economic Organization and NACET to bring the Pioneer Pitch event. It's going to be April 11th through the 13th. It's a 2.5-day event for entrepreneurs. You'll come in and you can meet, network, you can do an all-day training to craft your pitch, know how to kind of sell your product in 5 minutes. And then on the 13th is a live event. So if you are interested in participating, definitely look into this. If you know somebody who you think could participate, please look into it. And if you just want to come and check it out, maybe you're an investor, maybe you want to invest in some of our local businesses, come to that live event. All right, so the next is the Verde Valley Regional Economic Organization, and this acronym goes by VV-RIO. It's a little more snazzy. So we at VV-RIO, we have small business loans and we do business assistance as well. We are a regional nonprofit organization doing regional collaboration to focus on job creation and sustainable economic growth. And we have a revolving loan fund, and I keep saying we because I'm on the board. Through my position with the City of Sedona, I serve on the board, and all my counterparts do as well. Clarkdale, Cottonwood, Camp Verde, the Yavapai Apache Nation. We all serve on this board. In fact, our beloved Jennifer does too. Because we believe in regional economic development. You know, we are a regional economy, we have a regional workforce, and we can do a lot of great things in Sedona, but we can do even more great things if we partner at a regional level. And one of those things is leveraging this revolving loan fund. We were able to acquire over $700,000 in financing and grant to put together a loan fund to help small businesses. This isn't something that the City of Sedona probably could have done on its own with, you know, attracting that kind of a grant, but again, as a regional level, we have that pool of funds, and those are available to our small businesses in Sedona and throughout the Verde Valley. On the table is a little info sheet again, so you can take it if you know anybody who may be interested in it. To date, we have lent out over $500,000. Some of our borrowers include RC Auto Glass, a vet clinic, Village Yoga is going to be opening in the village soon. And Tribe Wellness, that was Dr. Mary Watson, was a psychiatrist for Northern Arizona Healthcare, and she opened up her own practice just up the road on 89A here in Sedona. And she's expanding some of those services there. We maintain an active pipeline. There's a lot of people and businesses interested in acquiring some of those funds. And we work with our Small Business Development Center and we work with our banks. We've got a couple different loan types. I won't bore you with the acronyms. All you need to know is that there's two types of funding. One is there's no limit, but we currently have $95,000 available in that fund. And the more that we loan out, the more that comes back to us, we can add to that pot of funds to then reloan out again. Second pot of funds, we have about $200,000 available, and the maximum is $50,000, which is roughly about the average of what most people need. And we have the other requirement is that you have to have less than 10 full-time employees. Our rates are really competitive. They're typically around 6%. That's not bad for a little bit of a riskier loan. If anybody's a banker, I don't think that's too bad of a deal. Our terms are about 3 to 4 years. Again, it's because we want to get those funds back so we can loan those back out to other folks. We take collateralized positions. A lot of times it's, we're taking a second mortgage on a home. Again, where a bank might want to be in first position, we're okay with second position because our goal isn't just to recoup our funds, it's also to make sure that we're growing businesses in the Verde Valley, in Sedona, and fostering that job creation. We want to make sure that our borrowers are not eligible for traditional bank financing. That seems strange, but it's because we have a lot of great banks in the area. And they're kind of on that front line of economic development, and they're doing it every day. So if they can fund those loans, that's what we want them to do. Our jobs are to help a business grow, get those 3 years of good financials, and then maybe a bank can take them over later and fund them. We do gap financing. What that looks like is, maybe somebody needs a $100,000 loan, 1AZ can put in $75,000, VV-RIO can come in with another $25,000 to fill that gap and make the project work. The minimum amount is about $25,000, and we require that you have a business plan and understand financial information. That may seem pretty obvious, but there are a lot of people, not just in elementary school, but in adulthood, that don't like math. And we need them to work with our Small Business Development Center or their economic development directors to work on their financials so we can help them, be sustainable through this loan process. Pretty easy. We need a complete application. It's underlined and highlighted because complete means complete. We need all of the information, the tax returns, the due diligence. Wade's laughing, but we need a complete information so we can make a decision. This is something that we take very seriously, and we want to recoup our costs, and this is a legitimate loan. Loan applications are available at VV Rio online, or you can just contact me if you're interested, and I can help kind of shepherd you through the process. Our loan committee reviews it, our board makes a decision, and then we typically have a 45-day turnaround from that complete application. So, with that, here's some of my information. If you have any questions about anything, shoot me an email, and we can talk about it. Oops, oops. Questions, that's what that meant to say. I have a bag of cash in the bag.
Wow.
Thank you, Molly, and thank you to all of our presenters. Keegan here has been streaming the presentation live on our Facebook page, so if you missed anything or you want to go back, you can visit our Facebook page at sedonachamber.com, or you can visit sedonachamber.com. We'll post the full presentation there on our homepage, so you have access to that and all of those resources. I want to thank all of you for coming. I know it's a lot to ask for you to spend a couple of hours of your morning with us. So thank you for making time for us. Thank you to our board and our elected officials who are here today, who have made time and who support us so much. And thank you again to APS, our sponsor of the Community Pulse event. All of our presenters are here and will stay here as long as you have questions. Please don't hesitate to come and talk to us. And please make sure you check out your email newsletter. That's where we'll post all of our updated events and information to keep you posted on what's happening in the community, so that you can continue to keep your finger on the pulse of what's happening in Sedona. Thank you all. Please give yourselves a round of applause for being here.